Hello, everyone, and welcome to the YTMB Builders Tuesday night general hangout. Tuesday's hangouts are the general are a topic-driven hangouts. Tonight is the Geno show, and his guest tonight is Bill Beranek, the track planner. And as you can see, Geno's not here tonight. He had a problem at his house, and he's having to take care of that, and was not able to do the show. He asked me if I would step in. So I'm Johnny Rebb with Southeast Rails. So I'll be doing the show tonight with Bill, run the tech part, letting Bill do all the talking, I guess. The Tuesday night is the proud sponsors of the YTMB Builders, the E-Magazine, and the YTMB Builders live show. And also Thursday night hangouts. I'm having to do all this backwards. I'm used to Thursday and not Tuesday, so bear with me, folks. I'm doing it. But anyway, you want to check in on YTMBbuilders.com. There you can get the schedules for the Tuesday night hangouts and the live show. You can sign up for the E-Mag. It comes out every other month. Tuesday's hangouts now are pretty much every other week to a month there. We got Mr. Bill here. He does a hangout with us, a live show, and Miles Hill does one too for us. The live show is going to be July the 16th. That's on Saturday. All our shows are Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday are 9 o'clock Central Time, 10 o'clock Eastern. Check your time zone. Make sure you got the right time so you can join us. The Q&A is up and running. And I want to say thank you to everybody. We got a few people here on the panel. We got Mr. Taki here, Jim, Mr. Hawks, Dwight, Dave, Andy, and Andrew in Australia. Let's see, I got Jason in the Q&A. Sparky's there in the Q&A. And if you got any questions, post them up here. Bill will be taking breaks, and we will get to the questions on the Q&A. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn the show over to Mr. Bill. How you doing tonight, Bill?
Doing fine, thanks, Johnny. Tonight we're going to do, it's going to be a slide presentation because I want to talk about three things. First, the general mistakes that I see people, common mistakes I see people make when they're designing their layouts. I'm going to talk, going to divide it into basically three portions. We're going to talk about some of the mistakes that I see people make. We're going to talk about bench work pertaining primarily to walk-along track plans, which is, as most of you know, my favorite of all to do there. And then we're going to show at the back third of the final third of the program is going to be some track plans that clients gave me suggestions, and I'm going to show what the suggestions are, and then I'm going to show three of them are going to be showing what I actually designed for the customer. One of them is going to be one that I didn't do for the customer, but I want to show where I think the customer or the client has been making some mistakes on it, and trying to, get it so what I think is a much better idea. But that'll be the back side of the program. So I'm going to do a screen share here now, and you guys need to let me know if you can see what I've got. Has it come up?
Yes.
Okay, good.
And I'll get you presented to everybody, too. There you go.
Everybody's here. All right. This is going to be talking about walk-along track plans using the Girder benchwork. Now, don't get glassy-eyed on me about Girder. I'm going to make it pretty simple. I'm going to tell you what I think the advantages are and everything of it. Here's basically what we're going to do tonight. We're going to talk about the common mistakes I see the newbies make when they start designing their layouts. I'm going to talk about how those designs lead to poorly designed bench work. I'm going to try to demystify the Girder bench work for people. I think it's absolutely the best way to go when you're building a layout. And that it's lightweight, it's really simple, it's not that tough to do. And then I'm going to show examples that clients suggested their designs and what I finally did design for them in a walk-along. If you're new to the hobby, I think this presentation is going to help you design a better layout, and the key for it is, in my mind, the walk-along track plan is absolutely the best way to go. Okay, common mistakes. This is probably one of the bigger ones, is they build their benchwork way too wide. People think, well, 30 inches that's not very wide. I can reach that without any problem. Yeah, you can until you want to reach into a corner. And then you got 42.5-inch reach. 24-inch bench work, you still have a 34-inch reach into the corners. The average height adult, say someone that's about 6 foot tall, 5'11", 36 inches is really about the maximum they can comfortably reach into a corner. So when you start doing 30-inch bench work, you got yourself a problem. Either you're not going to be using the corner, or you're going to be always standing on a stool reaching into the corner. The other thing I see happen, not as much as you would think, but quite often, is for some reason people think they've got to use 2x4s to build bench work. You don't. You're going to see my bench work on mine here in a little bit. 1x4s, 1x3s, and 1x2s, that's all you need. You don't need the 2x4s. Other common mistakes, and this is tough for me as a designer. People choose the wrong era for the space they have available. They want to run modern day equipment in a 120 square foot space, in a 10x12 space. Then this is what I get on my questionnaires, is I'll get this, well, my space is 10x13 or 10x12. They want modern equipment. Then they want an intermodal operation in that same space. Then the one that is, I put this one in just as, not as a joke, because it has happened to me. If it's modern, you can almost bet they're going to talk to you about the Walther's ethanol complex. Well, if most of you don't know it, that thing takes up a ton of space if you went and bought every building they had there. It's just incredible the amount of the size of those buildings and how much space they take up. Then the other problem is they always want to run 85-foot passenger cars on 22-inch radiuses, and it looks terrible. It just doesn't look right. The other problem, and I see this constantly, they want to install too much track. And I'll get the same person that has the 10x12 space. Invariably, they'll tell me they want to put in a double track main line. No, they don't. You're barely going to get a single track main line to work in there. Here's the 3 biggest mistakes that I see constantly. They build it, but they don't test it. They don't thoroughly test their track work. I recommend, and people think I'm crazy on this, but I recommend that they run trains for anywhere from at least 6 months to a year before they ever do any scenery work anywhere on the layout there. They start scenery too soon, and they haven't tested the track to know that everything's going to work. So if you got a bunch of tunnels on your layout, just, let's pray you don't have trouble with those tunnels, especially if you're putting turnouts inside them, which I very seldom ever try to design. The last one is the one that I constantly fight with people, is they won't be honest with themselves. They realize they made serious design errors, but they're unwilling to scrap the layout and start over and get some professional help. That's the one that just is, and it isn't because I'm looking for a lot of business. It's just that, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again when it doesn't work. Okay. Any questions about that part of any questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. Well, and I'm not doing the 2x4 bench work, but a lot of people, it's just cheaper. I mean, if they can't find the 1x4 economies for a couple of bucks, the 2x4s is just so much cheaper. So people on a budget, I've talked to a couple guys, well, you really don't need 2x4s. Well, yeah, but it was just cheaper than anything. I couldn't buy any 1x3, 1x2s, etc. as cheap as I could buy an economy 2x4. The other is the wider bench work. your reach is to the very back of the corner, but if your track is a radius, it's a decent size, and you're only reaching to do the scenery in that back corner, that's something that's only done once, and it's pretty much, you're not trying to reach for it every day. It's only a certain period of time in your build. So, I mean, that's my only thoughts on, because I have 27 inches, 27-inch bench work around 3 walls.
Right.
And my biggest problem for reaching is doing the scenery. The track work I can reach with no problem.
Well, yeah, and you're right, Jim. The thing is yeah, you're putting mountains in those corners, and that certainly helps. What I see is people want me to put industries in those corners.
Oh, I agree with you there.
There's no way they can switch back there and do things like that. The scenery's okay, that's fine, but it's still a reach issue. As far as the 2x4s go, here's my thought on that. The bench work is like the foundation of the house. Why would you want to cheat on the bench work and not use good materials? Out here where I live in Colorado, the difference between buying 2x4s and 1x4s is not that big of a deal. I don't see that big of a difference between them and it's just, to me, it's just hard to work with 2x4s. You're going to see my in this next section, you're going to see, and you've already seen some of it because I've sent it to a lot of you guys, you're going to see my bench work on my layout, and you're going to see how few of 2x4s there are on this whole layout. Matter of fact, there's 5 of them to be exact.
Well, and I'm talking about people that are doing basic, like me, flat bench work with plywood on the top to start with, and they, they're not doing L girders where, you know what I mean. So, and until I watch, I haven't seen your L girder presentation. So until I see that, I don't see where a 2x4 makes it harder than a 1x4.
Well, and where it makes it harder is what you'll see here in the presentation as I move on. Okay. You'll see the ease of crawling underneath the layout. A lot of those kind of things there. So we'll keep going here. That's all.
Okay. And the other thing is people not wanting to tear out their existing. I was one of your customers that did not want to tear out 3 walls of it. Now, I just built on top of it because I needed to go higher anyways to get around, so that I had room above my desk, as you remember. Right. So my thoughts is I'm already handicapped. Trying to rip that stuff out and restart from new, it was just as easy for me to make a couple of boxes and throw some studs in there to sturdy it up, and I did 1x4s or 1x3s, but it was just easier for me to build a box, throw it on top of my old stuff. I was done, so.
Well, the people that I design for that have already built a layout and they find it isn't working, it takes a little effort to get them convinced that we need to start over. So far, everybody that I've had do that, I've had nobody call me up and say, well, that was really a stupid thing to do, and everybody seems to be happy with that. Go ahead, Jim.
And I might have been different, but how stubborn I am, so I had to have those 3 walls stay the same, and you worked with it. And
I worked with you.
We got it done, and we got that big, huge 4-foot island in there that I wanted.
Yes, we did.
But it worked. We got it. Now, I don't have an island that I can do a loop around like you do a lot with the center divider, which would have really looked nice. I've seen Curtis Hunt's layout that you did for him, and it would have been nice to have something like that to make it seem bigger. And I understand that's where the smaller shelves would have come into play in this room. But so I understand it. But
you're gonna see Curtis's layout here. It's one of my examples because Curtis did exactly the same thing you did. He put together that bench work, found out that it didn't work like he wanted it to, and then he got a hold of me and. Curtis was no different than you. He was really Curtis. I'll never forget Curtis. He says to me, "Are you going to explain to my wife I've got to tear this all down, or do I have to do it?"
Bill? Go ahead,
Bill.
Yeah.
I got a few up here in the Q&A that's on this portion here. If you want to grab those before we move on.
Go ahead and read them to me.
All right. This is Sparky 107.
Okay.
I just put up a video tonight on my bench work. It's 3 minutes long. If you get a chance, look at it. Love to hear your comments on it.
Well, tell Sparky, if he's listening, that his plan is on here because of what he sent me, and I ran an example in here of where I think I understand what he wants to do, but I don't think he should do it, and I'm going to use his is going to be one of the other examples. So tell Sparky, stick around. We're going to go through this.
Guy knowing here, Southern 8099. Haven't seen you in a while, bud. You need to jump in here. Kind of like to talk to you. Get your track down and run trains ASAP. The worst thing you can do is start on the scenery, etc. You will get bored and fed up real quick. Run trains ASAP. Let's see, I had another one down here. Where was it? Hillbilly Railroad. Is 16 inches to 20-inch bench work a good start?
Yeah, I design very little bench work wider than 24 inches. Everything that I do, I try to do less than 24, 22, 18. You'll see as we go through some of these at the bottom, the back third of this program, you're going to see some track plans, and you'll see the bench work situation there. I think that'll all come here.
Yeah, I don't know who this next character is, but he pops in here every now and then. Southern Brooklyn Railroad or South Brooklyn Railroad. Let's see. Yeah, what he's got here is went from starting 2x4 to 1x3, and it's much easier to work, easier and to get under the layout.
Yeah,
makes it easier getting under the layout.
I think we're going to show that here in about 2 or 3 slides. Bill knows. I've been through this with him a couple times.
Yeah, we'll do the last one here. This is Curtis Hunt. I went out, got a table saw to make my 2x2s and my 1x2s, and it has some good stock.
Yeah. Well, Curtis is going to be one of the featured guests tonight there, so he'll stick around. Okay, I'll keep going here now, guys.
Yeah.
All right. This is L Girder benchwork. Now, I've put these A, B's, and C's on there because it's better than trying to move the mouse around. Basically, L Girder framework is assembled using this. This is how I did mine, and all I want you to concentrate on is the bottom half. Don't worry about the homosote, the plywood, the upper half. Just concentrate on that bottom half there. I put this whole framework together for my layout using small brads, an air gun nailer, and a good quality yellow carpenter's glue. There's not a screw anywhere in that bottom half of that bench work except where it screws to the wall. That's the only place. Or if I've got 2 modules, my modules are about 5 or 6 feet long. When I butt up 2 modules against each other, I screw those together. But what you see on the plan there, you see where I've got the word risers at A. The only screws in this are those risers that rise up there, and then we put 1x2s horizontally, and then we put the plywood and the homosote on top of that. Now, what people have to think about when they build it this way is that bottom level, that where it says L Girder. And what makes it L Girder is simply taking a 1x3 or a 1x4 and throwing a 1x2 on top of it there at an L shape. It makes it so incredibly strong. It's not magic, but people just don't realize how strong it makes it. You'll see my bench work in the next slide here, and I did a slight modification to what this is here. But the point I want to make is that I built like 8 or 10 sections for my layout, and there's not a screw in any of that bottom. It's all simply brad, and the brad nails were there just to keep everything lined up while the carpenter's glue dried. And how good is the carpenter's glue? When I would take it apart, the wood would break before the glue would let go. So you didn't need to be worrying about screws and all that. And the carpenter's glue, if you buy good quality, it dries hard enough in about 15 or 20 minutes. You can work with it easily there. But this is the basic of L Girder. It's not that complicated. Now, something I want to talk about with this picture is those risers. When you design this way, suppose I like Benchwork, but when I design a lot of layouts, I design the Benchwork to be at about 42 inches off the ground for the main level, if we're doing a main level. Well, the 42 inches is the top of the homocylinder in this particular design you see here. I use half-inch homocylinder and half-inch plywood. So then what you have to do is you have to start subtracting off of that what you want your height to be. On my layout, that bottom part, the L girder part of that benchwork, in my room, it's 36 inches off the floor, all the way around the room. It's the same height completely around the room. And then I put those risers on at the heights that I want the eventual track to be at. My main level varies from 42 inches on top of the homocylinder up to about 45 or 45 and a half inches on the other side of the room. All I did was put taller risers on it to bring it up. There, you don't build on the L girder. The L girder is just there to support everything else. Any questions about this at all, guys, before I move to the next slide?
I've got one, Bill.
Okay.
All right, up there where you got the A and the B, that
Yes.
picture there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that lower section on the A side, that looks like just a plain 1x3 board.
A 1x3 and a 1x2.
All right, that's L girder too on the back side that's up against the wall.
No, that is not. That's a butt-up joint. What you're going to see on mine, as soon as I go to the next slide, I put L girder on the back side too. Now it changes a little bit what you do, which I'll show you, and we'll explain it when you see the photograph here.
Oh, okay.
Some people will do only L girder on the front. Some people will do it on the back. The back of the wall, what I show is the wall side of this L girder. That's the 1x4. And the reason you put a 1x4 back there is that's what you're going to attach to the wall. You want it to be a little bit wider. It gives it a little more support. The rest of it can be 1x3s, 1x4s, things like that. There's not a 2x4 in this thing anywhere in that. So I'll build out of 1x3s. No, 1x, I should say. Okay, let's go to the next slide, because I think this will make a lot more sense to you when we get there. Okay, this is one wall in my room there. You see the L girder. Don't worry about the 2x2s. I'll tell you about that in a second. But if you notice the front, looks exactly like the picture you've just seen. You got the 1x2 sitting flat. In my case, I think I went with either a 1x3 or 1x4. I put 1x3 on the photograph. That could be a 1x4. Go look at the back, what attaches to the wall there. I put an L girder back there too. That L girder happens to be a 1x3 back there. So I got the 1x4 that attaches to the 2x2s, and then I threw a 1x3 on top of that. And then I put the 1x4s in for the cross members that come across. Why did I put 2x2s going up the wall as opposed to just attaching this directly to the wall? Very simple reason for this. Fortunately, the room in this house that I'm in, there's no closet. This was designed as an office. There's a door that comes in. The room is 16 by 13. There's a door that comes in over in the corner, then the rest of the room is just walls like this. I put the 2x2s running vertically up and down because this is a four level layout. This layout is 4 levels tall. I wanted to use the 2x2s all the way up there, so I put them up as high as I needed them. The other reason is really simple. If and when I tear this layout out, I can tear all the benchwork apart. I'll just end up with those 2x2s. I unscrew those from the wall. They're screwed into the studs in the wall. I unscrew those from the wall. I fill the holes. I repaint the room, and no one would ever knew there was a layout in this room. Nobody would even guess there was a layout in there.
Bill.
Yes.
Can you do a refresh real quick, please? Your audio just went bad. There you go, Sparky. It's just, we do have problems with audio sometimes, so.
Okay. Let me get over to my.
Yeah.
Am I sounding better now?
No. And he will be back in a moment.
Is this sounding better?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go over and do the screen share again.
Yeah, you may not have to stop your. Oh well, yeah, you will, because he'll kill it when you do a refresh.
Can everybody see it again?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what creates this thing to be so strong is not only the L girder, but those 45 angled 2x2s that angle. And you could sit on top of this without any problem at all. And I weigh a little over 215 pounds or 220 pounds. I can sit on top of this and it won't even move. It's extremely strong. People don't think it's that strong, but it is. But this is sitting at 36 inches off the floor. All of my track is sitting anywhere from 42 to about 45 and a half inches off the floor. Okay.
Bill, real quick, you put that back 1x4 against those first.
You got to put them right against the 2x2s.
Okay, so how do you build this structure? You put the one that back there first. Do you build the box and then?
Yeah, good question, Jimmy. The boxes were built in my garage, and they were carried down there. The vertical 2x2s were simply screwed into the walls. If you notice something, this is just there's no big deal here, but look at the bottom where we have the baseboard along there. This whole house has got oak through the whole damn thing. I didn't want to ruin that or hurt it, so what I did is I simply notched out the 2x2s there so that they fit around that oak baseboard there, and then you can see the screws. You can see where the screws are in there. I can only put the screws in about every 3 foot. There's a one up the wall. There, it's all you have to do, and then you take the L girder benchwork, you screw it to the 2x2s, then you come back and you put your 45s in, and your 45s instantly lock the whole thing together. There, makes it completely tight and everything. Okay, here's a corner, and you can if you look at the red dots I've got, the A, B, C, and D. Those are where everything's L girder. That's the L girder part of it there. And you can see I, against the wall, I use the 1x3s. On the front of it, I use the 1x2s there to form it. Excuse me. You'll also notice that I didn't go all the way to the corner with my bench work. I put that corner bracing in there. Why? First of all, it's just waste and lumber, and I didn't need it back there. It's just not needed in that area, so I didn't put it all the way back into there. And that's basically what the corners look like of each one. Okay.
Well, wait, I got a question.
Go back to it. Okay.
How do you put the scenery all the way back to the corner if there's nothing there to help support it?
Okay, understand. You think back about the last slide. The scenery doesn't go on this. Let's go back. The scenery goes on the up here.
Okay, I forgot about that part. All right.
Okay.
Never mind.
Okay. All right, here's my peninsula. Now, also in this picture, you'll see I've started my second level there on there. So you get an idea of what that looks like. There's 4 2x2s you see in this picture. They're turned sideways, and then I've got the 2x4s for the feet down there with the gussets that hold it together. There's one more 2x4. You'll see I've got 5 2x4s on this layout, and that's it, guys. That's all there is. And what you see, the blue on the floor is simply the tape that outlines exactly where the track, the outside edges of the bench work is going to be. Even if you look back on the wall, you get you can see those pictures of the track plan. You get kind of an idea of what's going on. Where you see the B at on this picture, from there closer to coming towards me or coming towards me, that's where my helix is. You're going to see that in the next couple of pictures. That helix sits inside of that the length of the width of that board there, and down the center is the divider. So, but what I wanted to show you guys was, first of all, there's the 2x4s. Now, also, if you look back on that first level, there you can see what happens, where Jim was asking about what do you do back in the corner for scenery. See, my track is all raised up there, and you're actually seeing two levels on that first that you don't realize. If you go back to the wall that's got the clock on it, that's staging. If you go to the right of it, about 4 inches higher, it doesn't look like 4 inches in the picture, but it is. That's where my yard is at. So my staging is back against that back wall, and it's only sitting about 3 inches above the L girder. And then you just keep putting those risers on there, and that's how you get your elevation changes. Okay, let me go to the next picture. Okay, here's a good picture of the start of the helix there, and the L girder that I built around the helix there. Now, in the next picture, and this isn't going to make much sense to you until you see the next picture, my main line on this railroad runs around the outside of the helix there. This helix will be totally covered up with, I started using masonite, and I went to sheet styrene because it's so much easier to work with. It's not cheaper, but it's easier to work with than that. But again, I continue that L girder all the way around there. And as soon as you build the L girder and it ties into the other back on that back wall, you can't believe how stable this peninsula is, how stable it is. Those boards, the boards that are going up, those are 2x2s, and that's what I attached the helix to, was those as I went up there. And then there's your fifth 2x4 right at the very end out there. You can see it sitting there. So again, that's the only 2x4s in there. Okay. Now, here's the helix pretty much completed and done. And again, not much different here. Where A is, I kind of want to make a story about A. If you look at B, you'll see some track at B back there in that wall. That track comes around to the other B you see sitting on the left side there. And that is not what goes into the helix. I have track that actually goes down, goes underneath part of this peninsula and ties into the helix just about where A is at, but probably down about 4 foot down. The train goes into the helix, it goes up that 5-turn helix, and comes out where you see A there. The point of this is, when I designed this here, is a person running a train out of the yard on the right side goes down, disappears into the peninsula. The operator doesn't have to move. He can stand exactly where he's seen the train disappear, and the train will eventually come out where you see the A at there. It comes out exactly where he's standing. This is a design element that I use so that you don't want the track coming out on the other side of the peninsula, because then your operator's got to run around on the other side to see when his train comes out. All my operators have to do is just stand where the train disappeared. It'll come right back in their face when it gets up the peninsula there. And that. So I hope this is making sense for you guys there. Okay, here's the finished peninsula. We'll talk about a couple things here. Where you see the A, there's the main line coming around the outside of the helix. That's where I've got to come. Again, remember, this room is only 13 by 16. This is a small room, and I had to bring the main line around the outside of the helix. That helix is a 24-inch helix, by the way, there. And then I think the track on the outside is I think it's around 28 inches or something like that. The gray pieces that you see there that I've attached to that, all those I buy them you can buy them, at least out here in Colorado, excuse me, you can buy them at Home Depot. They're called drywall shims. And I think you can buy 100 of them for just a few bucks. That's what I use to staple. I literally just stapled them to the edges of that half-inch plywood there. And so if a car tips over inside of the helix, it's not going to fall off the layout. There, that's all that is there. I want you to be aware, because I'm going to show you in the next slide here. You'll see it to the left of the picture. You'll see that green building there. That's going to be what the north side of the peninsula. I'm also going to show you the south side. The reason I want you to kind of be aware of that is it'll make more sense when you see the next picture here. Also, you'll notice on my layout, anywhere where I have switching, I do put in absolutely flat areas. But anywhere where there's just the main line, I don't do anything but cookie cutter. I cookie cutter everything there. The only places you'll see areas that are flat are towns where I have to do switching, because obviously it has to be flat. Everything else on this layout is cookie cuttered as far as the main line is concerned. Okay? And here's the picture that you just seen. There's that same building on the north side. There's the south side of the peninsula. And if you notice on the north side picture, look at A and look at C, and you can see as soon as I get past the town, I go right back to the cookie cutter design. Why do you do that? First of all, believe it or not, it does save lumber. You're not using a lot of lumber. Number two, now that's how I can adjust my heights there. I think this particular spot here on the north side, I think that's about 44 inches off the floor. When you get on the other side of that aisle where it's curving back around, I think it's 45 inches over there. Well, where I started the rise was just as soon as we got past that C up there, I started building the risers up so that I could pick up that inch that I needed. Same thing on the south side, guys. You can see that track coming it actually goes over my staging back there at the top of the photo, comes into this town as a cookie cutter, but then I make it flat in the town, and then when it leaves the town, it goes back to a cookie cutter design. Any questions about this? Is this all making reasonable sense to everybody?
Yeah, you're screwing the plywood and the homicide with sheetrock screws.
Yeah, that's all I use.
And no glue.
No, I don't glue it together. I found out that's a huge mistake to do.
Yeah.
First of all, and let me do a disclaimer here too, because I know I'm going to catch a lot of flack from people who are on the show tonight and people that are watching. I refuse to use pink foam or blue foam. I don't like it. I don't think it's as stable as it's supposed to be. I'm a huge fan of half-inch plywood and half-inch homosoap. That's the only way that I'll ever build a layout. I'll never use foam to do it. I just don't like. And understand, with the cookie cutter design that I do, it's very easy to put bridges and rivers in because you've got just a 4-inch wide, 4.5 inch wide piece of plywood that you're working.
Yeah, the problem for me here, we can't get homicide anymore. You just have the foam.
Yeah, I know it. That's interesting. This stuff that I'm using it's not even called homosoap. I get it out of Denver, Colorado. It's about $35 a sheet there, and they call it MyCore. And I have no idea why they call it MyCore, but that's what they call it. And that's how I order it. It was kind of just a side story here, real quick. But I went to a place here where I live in Fort Collins. They don't sell it, but they get it for me, and they have it shipped up from Denver. And I went in and I ordered 4 pieces from them one time. And the guy says, "You only want 4 pieces?" I says, "Yeah, that's all I need." He says, "That must be a pretty small room you're building."
Yeah.
I says, "No, it's a model railroad." He goes, "Oh, that makes a heck of a lot more sense now," he says.
Got a couple of Q&As here if you want to do those real quick.
Perfect.
All right, this is from Carl. I use drywall screws instead of wood screws. Reason is they are cheaper, but I think they hold better as long as you use the coarse thread. Is there a reason for wood screws that you use?
I think I probably misspoke. I probably did use drywall screws. in there. I probably used, that's ½ inch, so I probably used 1-inch drywall screws there. The point I want to make about this is why I screw it together and I don't glue it is if I screw up and I make a mistake and I want to change this, I want to change this arrangement at some point for whatever reason. If I glued that homoseal, or my cords they call it out here, if I glued that to the top of my ½ inch plywood, I got to throw both of them away. Now if I screw it together, all I got to do is take the screws out, take it apart. Not a problem.
Yeah, Carl's got another good question here. If you don't take your supports all the way to the corners, how do you support your backdrop?
Say that again.
If you don't take your supports, benchwork, where you hit a corner in the wall,
right?
How do you to the corners? How do you support your backdrop?
My backdrops are all either, as you see in these pictures, they're masonite. I have since changed these. That's no longer masonite. That's sheet styrene that I buy from a company out here. First of all, I curve all of my backdrops. I don't have any square cornered backdrops. All of my backdrops are curved. And when I curve them in the corners, I don't even lock them in the corners. I simply screw it where as you curve it, wherever the 2x2 or maybe a 1x2, 1x4, whatever it may be, I screw it into that and I just let the corner flow naturally. And you don't need to support it there. It's fine. You don't need to put any supports behind it because it's being supported on either side of the curve that we've got there. And again, I do no square corners. I don't do squares.
Okay, let's see here. Yeah, Tony, he's got a comment. He makes modules. In my layout, I only use 1x3s or 1x6s.
Yeah,
He's
right.
got a modular type layout.
As I said when I started this, everybody overbuilds their benchwork. And it's a waste of money and it's a waste of time when you do that.
Yeah.
This looks complicated, but it's not. It's really very, very simple how it goes together.
Yeah, once you get into it, it really is. Big Bill, South Brooklyn Railroad, when building my structure, these photos came in very handy, and the peninsula was built just like that.
Yeah.
Because he had a peninsula in his.
What I told Bill and what I tell everybody, that because I design, as most of you know, I design a heck of a lot of layouts with peninsulas in them, and that I give everybody these pictures and that because I tell them I've done it, it works, it does what it's supposed to do. Everybody thinks there's a stability problem. Well, all you have to do in these two pictures are great examples. Look just below the C where the L girder ties into the L girder along the wall, and you look over on the south side picture just above the wastebasket where it ties in. As soon as I tied those together right there, that bench work along with those feet became absolutely rock solid. That thing, I've bumped into it in that room and I don't move. It doesn't move. It absolutely doesn't move there. And again, remember, it's all built with 1x4s, 1x3s, and 1x2s, except for the feet.
Yeah, I've got 2 more, and then we'll go back to your presentation. This is Sparky again, 107. He said my layout is coming up as an example. Feel free to say what you want to say. I'm cool with criticism. Thank you, Sparky. We appreciate that.
Sparky, I will be kind to you. I will be kind.
And the last one here is going to be Bruce. Where can we find the drawings and pictures? Thank you for sharing this information. DDA 40X fan.
Well, this is going to be recorded. First of all, if you want these pictures, just anybody mail me at thetrackplanner.com or at thetrackplanner@gmail.com. Email me, and I'll be happy to send the photos to anybody that wants them there. And then you can have them so you can look at them, at your pleasure, so to speak.
And the show is recorded, so all you got to do is go to YouTube channel and look up the YouTube Mall Railroaders, and You'll find the recording there. You can just go back, play it as much as you need to.
And you don't have to listen. And if you turn the sound down, you don't have to listen to me. You can just look at the
And
picture.
also, you can subscribe while you're there.
Exactly. Way to go. Okay.
Hey, how about the bicore that you're talking about? Because homosode's getting more and more rare, and I've heard of the bicore material as a byproduct to some manufacturing process. But what do you find is its difference in it and homosode, and how well is it conducive to spiking, head leg track, etc.?
I'm going to be operating on a layout Saturday about 20 miles from me here. The layout is 3,000 square foot in a guy's basement. So it gives you an idea how big his house is. He built the whole layout with homosode. And he didn't hand lay any of his, with Mycore. He didn't hand lay any of his track because it's with a 3,000 square foot layout. He'd be dead before he ever got it all laid and that. It does, my understanding, Andy, is it takes spikes very, very well. The thing that I noticed difference between homosode and this Mycore is this Mycore is actually denser. You can poke your fingernail into it and you can leave a mark in it, but that compared to homosode, this is denser. It's heavier. When you pick up a sheet of it, I can't remember if I buy them in 4x8s or 5x10s. I can't remember how they come. But when you pick up a sheet of it, it's not light. It is dense.
And I'd heard that it is better, that it's more dimensionally solid. You know, homosode has got worse and worse. Years ago, you used to buy it. It was relatively smooth. These days, homosode has a lot of imperfections in it.
Well, interesting thing about this stuff, I cut it because I'm doing all these odd cuts and everything. I don't cut it using a saber saw because it just creates incredible amounts of dust and that. So I use simply a utility knife. Well, I found out very quickly I had to go buy utility blades by the dozens because this stuff is pretty tough on blades, and you can get about a dozen cuts, maybe 15 cuts with a blade, and then you got to flip the blade around. Then you can cut some more. And then after that, after about 25 or 30 cuts, you got to throw the blade away because it's no longer sharp. So it eats up a lot of utility blades, but utility blades are cheap. It's not
and before we go off the subject, you said you absolutely hate styrofoam. What about us guys that like putting ditches in between the tracks and ponds and things like that styrofoam is just absolutely fabulous for?
Well, yeah, and that's fine. You can do the same thing with this stuff as long as you plan for it. It's not a problem to do it this way. First of all, with my track up on the roadbed there, the cork roadbed, you automatically create your ditches that way. And then what you have to understand, the two pictures I'm showing here, Jim, this is towns. This is areas where you're not going to have a lot of that. As soon as you leave those areas and you look back there where I've got the cookie cutter method sitting back there, you can put in all the ditches, all the stuff you want to do because you've only got a 4 inch or 4.5 inch wide piece there, and then you can build your scenery all around it and off of it there. Okay. The biggest thing, Jim, is the two different trains of thought that people have. You're used to building everything on a flat surface. I'm used to having flat surfaces only where it's completely necessary. Everything else is cookie cuttered on my deal. It's all open.
Well, the only thing I was a little nervous about the cookie cutter, because I even thought about doing that with my plywood, was having to work with more plaster cloth to work with the scenery to attach the upper to the lower of the cookie cutter type stuff, you know what I mean?
Well, I'm going to, I don't have pictures here. I think I've got some other pictures where I can show some of that. What I like about the cookie cutter thing is, and again, we'll use the picture on the right, or you can use the one on the left, either one. When you look back at the top of the photo, if I want to put the scenery going up behind that track, I can have it go up behind it. If I want the scenery to come down a little bit, I can have the scenery come down a little bit. I have to, if I want to make that a cut, so that the train goes through a cut there, I can have the scenery come up on that inside curve there if I want to. I've got all the options in the world with that to what I want to be able to do with it.
Got one last question here I think would be good for right now, then we'll go back to your presentation, Bill.
Okay.
This is from Curtis Hunt. If you go back to the picture of the peninsula, I put a shelf under it and attached it to the 2x4s to have a space to store my stuff.
Yeah, I have enough room under mine, as you notice. I can store it right on the floor, and that's not a here the difference for me is I want to be able to get underneath that layout and do work. So I purposely keep. If you notice in all these pictures, you don't see a lot of stuff sitting under this layout. I've got that sitting in another room. I keep this room clean without anything under it because I don't want to be moving stuff when I have to crawl underneath of it. I just don't want to do that. Okay.
Bill?
Yeah.
Before you go to the advantages, go up to the top of the screen and that menu there, click on the gear and just resave your microphone. And let's see if that helps get rid of that popping sound.
Okay,
rather
than have to get out of the screen
rather than doing a refresh.
Okay.
See if that'll work.
I clicked on the gear. What do you want me to do?
I go to where it says your microphone. I think that's the second one down.
Got it.
Click on that. See if it lists several microphones.
All it lists is my my Pro webcam, the C920.
Yeah, just click on it one time, then go back down and hit the save button to make sure. Let's see if that'll clear up your audio.
That help?
Give me a couple of 1, 2, 3s.
1, 2, 3.
No, it's still popping.
Let's reset. We'll reset here. This is
Yeah.
I'm asking more questions, John, because this was for more of the beginners, so I'm trying to put in some good questions so people understand.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Okay. Johnny, do you want to do a commercial here?
Yeah, we can real quick.
Why don't you go ahead and do that?
All right. The Tuesday night hangouts are the proud sponsor of YouTube Mall Builders, the EMAG, and the YouTube Mall Builders live show. The website is youtubemallbuilders.com. You can go there to the website. There you can find all your information, schedules for both the EMAG, the Tuesday night presentations, and the live show. For the EMAG, JD and his crew do a fantastic job on that. And the membership, the viewership is subscriptions have really been growing on that one. That shows that the kind of work that they're doing with it. You can sign up to get notifications when the mag comes out. That way you'll know you can go download it. It is a PDF, so that means you can read it on a wide variety of different devices. Also, the live show is once a month, and we got one coming up July the 16th of this month. That's going to be a week from this coming Saturday. All our shows, the Tuesday night, Thursday night, and the live show are 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern. So check your time zone to make sure that you're coming in at the right time and you don't miss the show. If you do, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and the live show are recorded. You'll find them on YouTube at the YouTube Mall Railroaders page. We do have them listed there, so you can go watch them at any time you want to. And that concludes tonight's public announcement. Back to you, Bill.
Okay. Does everybody see the screen where it says advantages of Walkalong?
Yes.
Okay. All right. What's the advantages here? It maximizes your mainline runs there. And you'll see this as I go through some of the samples here in a little bit. It maximizes the usage of your available space in your room there. Trains appear to be going somewhere. This is one of the things I think is really important with the walk around. is you aren't standing in the room watching the trains run around in a circle. Operators feel like they're operating trains. They're not standing around watching trains because they have to walk along with their trains. They just aren't standing. Now, I know there's a few people out there that say they like to watch trains. I don't design layouts for people to watch. I design layouts for people to operate. And one of the keys to it is the walk-along design of them. Okay. It makes the layout feel like a real transportation system, not like a model railroad. This is the other one of my other little, it's not a pet peeve, that's a really bad word, but it's one of my things I try to get people to do is think of their railroad in terms of a transportation system, not a model railroad. The article that I wrote for the eMag coming out here this month is about Alan McClendon and the VNO, and I think I've got some pretty good comments in there what Alan said about Walkalong, and I highly recommend everybody read that column when it comes out because Alan is the guy that influenced me more than anybody else. Operators are part of the action because they have to walk along with their trains. They're just not standing around. And it'll take any size layout. A walk-along will take any size layout and make it feel bigger. And again, the key that I keep emphasizing is the trains come from somewhere and they go somewhere. They just don't go around in circles. Okay. Walk-along examples. Now here's where I'm going to get in trouble because I'm going to be beating some people up here probably, but I'm going to try not to.
That's okay. Couple of black eyes would do.
First of all, I want to make this point because this is a point. If you have a room that's 10 by 20, which is basically a 2-to-1 ratio on how the room is built, that is extremely easy, at least for me, to design a track plan for because you know what you're going to do. You're going to have a track running around the outside walls. You're going to have a center peninsula running down the center of it, and it's the best way to use the space. It's the most. It works. It's just the way that you do it. So anytime when I get a client who has a room that's it's a 2-to-1 ratio length to width, I know almost exactly what I'm going to do. Now, when you get into rooms that are not 2-to-1, like the design here I've got where I've got 17 by 20, this makes it a little more difficult to design a walk-around track plan because you don't have sometimes the width that you want. Sometimes you've got width both directions. But I'm going to show you the last plan I'll show you tonight in these examples is going to be the one where I said it's 4 levels, it's double peninsulas, no helixes. That'll be the last one you'll see, and it's basically a room that has measurements similar to this here. Okay, we're going to use 4 layouts, excuse me. We're going to use a 13 by 10, a 16 by 12, a 21 by 12, a 20 by 16. I got 5 written down there. That's probably not right. And a 22 by 19. We'll go through them and see. But I've got the different square footages they are. I always deal in square footages more than measurements. Okay, 13 by 10. Curtis, if I do this wrong, you can yell at me all you want. Send me all the bad emails. This was Curtis's request. He wanted a roundhouse, and naturally he says to me he wants Walther's big turntable there. And we're going to do this in a room that's 13 by 10. Curtis wanted a city scene. He wanted a single track. He might have wanted a double, I can't remember, but I talked him into a single track main line. He wanted a sorting yard, a classification yard. We wanted to make the main line run as long as we could. He would have liked to have had some hidden staging, and he did want some mountain scenes. Those were kind of the requests that he gave me. This is not exactly what Curtis had in his room, but it's good enough to talk about there. The room was 13 by 10. Curtis had 30-inch wide benchwork, which, as you know already, that causes, if you look at the letters A, that caused those 42-inch reaches into the corners. Made it kind of tough. If you have a 24-inch lift out, that's not very wide. You actually need it to be a little wider. The key problem, and this is what Curtis found out about this design, all you can do with the trains is run them around in a circle. You can't do anything else with them. They ain't going anywhere else. Put it in a circle there. And no matter, there's no track planner designer in the world that can do anything different than this. Now, we might be able to make the track curve a little bit, do this, do that, but the bottom line is you're going to stand in the middle and you're going to watch the trains run around you in a circle. So when Curtis got a hold of me, we talked about it, and I says, let's go with a center peninsula. I says, it'll be a short center peninsula, but I says, I can get you your longest run and all that. So from this picture you see here, this is what I designed for him. Now, we have a lift out there as he comes into the room. Now you'll notice that all the bench work is anywhere from as little as 6 inches, 8 inches, up to maybe 15 or 18 inches in spots and that. But now what Curtis has here is he has a walk-along track plan. He can follow his train around. There's a view block running down the center of that peninsula. I was able, when you see if you look just above the letter A there, that's the roundhouse and the big turntable. We got that into this plan. It took a lot of finagling, but we did get it into the plan. And I even put just below the turntable a fueling station for him so he can fuel cars and that. On the other side of the peninsula, you see it's pretty narrow over there. Curtis is going to have a pretty good reach where this turntable is, but we couldn't do anything about it because he'd already bought the turntable. He wanted to use it. Down at B is a very small yard, but it is a workable yard. There, I've put a yard lead over on the right side there, so that yard can be worked without getting in way of trains running around on the main line. There, we'll go up to D. That's kind of interesting. There was 7.5 inches there on that doorway. That was enough room to put an industry up there. Get an industry into there. Also, you'll notice just below that industry, I put in a bridge. I like to put those in my designs because those break up the scenes. They break the scenes up into little vignettes, what I call vignettes there. So this is a stockyards and a packing company down in the lower left-hand corner there, and those two scenes get broke up. The key to making this layout feel larger, plus it looks bigger, is that view block on the peninsula there. When people walk into Curtis's room, or when they will walk into Curtis's room, they are only going to see half or about 60% of the layout. They're going to have to walk in. They have to make a decision. Do I turn left? Do I turn right? Because they won't be able to see over that view block. The turntable, all that stuff's going to be blocked from their view. So this automatically makes it feel larger. Last thing about this is where you see the letter C. I got Curtis one hidden staging track in there, but that may not seem like it's worth a lot, but from an operation standpoint, that makes all the difference in the world on how this layout would operate prototypically. It's just one track, it's one hidden staging, but it will work on there. So we went, guys, from basically this here to what you see here for him. And so far he hasn't yelled and screamed at me. I think he's happy with it, and hopefully it'll work out for him when he finally gets it built. Okay, any questions about this? No questions. That's amazing.
No, it looks good. Now let's change mine.
All right. Let's do number 2, which is 16 by 12. Now this is Sparky, and Sparky, I apologize before I ever start this, but you told me it was okay to beat you up, so let's go and do it here.
I tell you what, Bill, before you do that, I want to read you Sparky's comment here. Doing bench work like that, you can sit on it, climb on it, use it as a bed when the wife is mad at you. I am 2x4 construction.
Yeah, I know. I've gotten that comment many times. I've never talked to Sparky. We did communicate by email, but by watching his videos, and I've watched every one of his videos, he's wanting to do a prototype where he grew up, and I think that's just a great idea to do that. the problem I seen was he was, and I may be 100% wrong in this, but I was getting the impression that he was trying to design it so that he had it exactly like the prototype. And that's very, very hard to do there. There was a large roundhouse and a turntable. There was a large car repair shop there. There were multi-tracks in the yard, multiple tracks in there. I know he does want continuous running, and he didn't say much about industries, but I'm assuming he wants some industries. When he sent me the information, this is what he sent me for the room there. Entry was down at the bottom that you see there, and the room again is 16 by 12. First thing that I seen was on the left side there at A, B, and A. He was talking, now he may have changed his mind, and I may be totally off base on this, and if I am, I apologize, but he was talking about building some benchwork that was 12 foot along that wall and then 4 foot wide. And that's where this big yard was going to be. Well, as you can see by my pictures, it's 53.5 inches to reach back into those corners. Now, I think Sparky's pretty tall, but I don't think he's tall enough to reach 53 inches back into there and that. And think about anybody that's got a 4x8 sheet of plywood. It's hard to reach all the way back to that wall if it is 4x8. Personally, I wouldn't do this. Now, if he wants to try to build that yard system where he grew up, he's going to almost need this much width. So you can't get away from it. He's going to have to do it. Then he's built. The rest of it is okay. He's kind of doing 2-inch wide, 24-inch benchwork, and I don't have any problem with that. I thought the lift out needed to be a little wider than it was coming into the room there. And then that peninsula that it was in the center, and I may be wrong on those measurements, but based on what you need for aisle width, he really can't have a peninsula in there much bigger than about 6 or 7 feet long by 24, maybe 30 inches wide. The problem with that kind of peninsula is there's not a whole lot you can do with it. It's going to be stub in. Yeah, maybe you can put an industry into there of some type, but in my mind, there's just not a lot you can do with that particular peninsula. Now, as you see over there on the left side, I said this was a classic, it's a donut hole design. Well, it's not quite a donut hole, but because it's got the center peninsula, but still, trains are only going to run around in a circle. They're basically going to go around the walls there, and if he just wants it to be able to watch trains run, that's great. I think that's perfectly fine there. But again, they're still going to run around in circles. There's no view block on this layout, and why I'm such a big proponent of view blocks is when someone walks into this room, when he finally gets this built, they can stand right there. They don't even have to come into the room. They can stand right at the entry to the room. They can see everything that's in that room with a one scan of the room. They'll see everything. Some people like that. Some people want that. It makes it all appear to be smaller, in my mind. It makes it look smaller. Now, what I'm going to show you, if I had this space, what I would do with it, and I think most of you already know what I would do with it, but if I had the space and I wanted to utilize it and do the walk-around design, the Girder benchwork, and that, this is what I would do. This is how I would use exactly the same space. Now, the biggest problem he's going to notice right here is where is he going to put this big engine facility and yard that he wants, because he literally does probably need 36 inches to 48 inches. Well, we can put everything along that top wall, but we just have to do what we call selective compression. We have to selectively compress everything down. What I've done on this, and again, this track work is very, very basic. It's just to show you what can be done with the space there. I put in, at least he could put in 8 industries. There's places for 2 towns to go into it. We would have a view block, so when somebody would walk into the room, they're not even going to see the yard over on the other side. They're going to have to walk around that peninsula to see that yard system and everything. And again, the basis of this whole program is someone is going to the operators have to walk along with their trains. Any questions, Johnny? What have I been beat up bad yet or not?
No, 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 no. Just looking at this, John's yard might work on this one, you think?
A possibility there. Well, the thing that Sparky was doing, and if he was on the show, he could tell you himself. He was very adamant in his videos, if you watch him, that he wants to reproduce where he used to walk across this thing when he was a kid, and it means a lot to him. And I understood all of that, and I do understand it. What I was trying to do simply by showing him this was say, there's a better way to use your space. You've got 16 by 12. It's a brand new room. He's got it all finished off inside and that. And my experience over 40 years of being in model railroading is anybody that builds layouts where the track basically goes around in a circle, I don't care how big it is, at some point they get tired of it. They just want to do something different. I don't have a lot of people get tired of the center peninsula around the wall designs with the narrow benchwork. People seem to enjoy that.
Yeah, Sparky did put up here the 6x2 is a 5x8
Okay.
off the bottom just before the lift out.
Okay. Maybe that just makes his aisle space a little narrower. But the bottom line is 8 foot. If it's 8 foot long, that's still not long enough to do much with it. And
Yeah.
And it's like,
Okay, so it's got something up here I think you might find a little interesting. I am a huge believer of Walkalong. Being a logistics guy at heart, it makes for an exciting time when I am running my layout. However, I find it difficult to make decisions on how big I want my industries to be. Any suggestions on how to solve this?
yeah, real easy. You don't put big industries in. You do small. Matter of fact, I may have put that in the article in the E magazine. That was one of Alan's big things. Was he's got this whole basement, this big layout in his basement. But if you really study the track plan and you really study what Alan did with it, he was doing coal mining, Virginia coal mining. Uh, he didn't have one big coal mine on this. There was no huge coal mine on that whole layout. Every industry was a 1 or 2 track small industry. So that's why I put for this one for Sparky here. I put these 8 spots for industries. If I was designing this layout, every one of those industries, except for maybe the 2 on the peninsula, would be very, very small, single track, at the most 2 track industries. I wouldn't even begin to think about putting an intermodal yard on this layout there, because you just can't do intermodal justice on this type of a layout. I always think it's better to put why put one industry in which what an intermodal could be, when you could put 2 or 3 industries in place of it and to make much more interesting operation there. But
Yeah. Let's see. Sparky's got. Yeah. I will show a track plan soon. Double main, but it runs back on itself. Next show,
okay.
this will be cleared up.
Yeah, and I want to emphasize with his here is what he wants to do. He's probably has to do what we showed in the previous one because of what he really wants to do. And all I was doing with him was just trying to give him a different option of something to do with the space. And again, everybody needs to understand I'm a big boy. Okay, nobody hurts my feelings if they say they don't like what I'm doing. I'm perfectly okay with that. I'm just trying to give people options of what to do with the space. Okay, let's go to the next one, because I think the next one's really interesting.
Yeah, this is Ron in Australia.
Okay.
It says, "Hi, Bill. Have you ever designed or asked to do a track plan that will run a faller road system on it and still have a little bit of switching room for the trains?"
Okay, somebody has to tell me what the faller system is.
All right, the faller is what they did is they put a wire down, and the cars will follow that, and you can put switches in there. So, like you have a city bus going down the street, he'll make his stops,
Okay.
and he turns the corner and keeps going. They have trucks, cars, all
Right.
that pretty neat system.
Well, the layout over in Greeley, Colorado, the Colorado Model Railroad Museum that I've been involved with for a number of years, they have in their city scenes and in one of their logging scenes, they have the system, but they do it with magnets underneath the scenery.
Yeah, that may be it. I'm not.
Yeah. No, I've never designed anything like that. To answer his question, I've never done that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Let's see.
Anything else?
We had another one here. Let's see. Oh, Big Bill, how often do you have to talk some of your customers off the ledge when it comes to planning a layout?
Well, Bill knows the answer to that one.
Yeah.
You have to bring them down to earth. You got to bring them back to probably the biggest problem that people have by not using what I use, which is the CAD system software, is as soon as you start drawing your track plans by hand and you don't use a CAD system to do it, you're gonna be way off, and you're gonna put too much track in areas that it just doesn't work. I had a gentleman send me one maybe 6 months ago. He wanted an 11-track stub-in staging yard. Well, that's fine. The only problem was his 11 tracks, when he drew the picture for me, the whole space was about 8.5 inches wide. Can't do it. Just can't do it. So
real quick, I want to let David know that I did copy the website he put down about my core,
okay.
and I posted it on the website at the post for this show.
Perfect.
Also, try and get that transferred over to the YouTube channel. Sparky said that his layout stated late 80s, probably early 90s.
Okay.
And Carl up here, the final design of the 13th plan only leaves very narrow aisles. Or am I looking at it wrong? Isn't that a problem for operations?
Okay. The picture that's on the screen right now, at the turnbacks, it's 26 inches. When you get past the turnbacks, it's a minimum of 30 and larger. The aisles are 30 inches wide. There. And a lot of times when I design layouts, one of the questions I always ask my clients is, are you planning on having operating sessions with more than 2 people or 3 people there? If they say, oh yeah, I can get a half a dozen people to operate, then what I'll do is I'll probably sometimes I'll try to go as high as 36-inch aisles, because the more people, the tougher it is for them to get by each other. 30-inch aisles is kind of a minimum for most people to get by each other. And it's not easy, but you can do it. But on the turnback there, where what I call the pinch points on this particular one that's up there now, that's 26 inches. But if you notice, as soon as you get a foot either side of it, it widens back out again. So it is a pinch point. Again, there's just so much and also I want to emphasize, this is just an example of what I wanted to show him that we could do. Very possibly, if I ever design this for someone, we may end up with Benchwork, instead of being 18 inches wide, may only be 15 inches wide, may only be a foot wide. All of a sudden, the aisles get bigger if we go to that. I don't want anybody to use this. Next one I'm going to show you is a much better idea of what's going to happen, because this gentleman coming up, he's going to operate pretty much by himself, but he had some particular requirements that he wanted. So let's move on here to that.
Yeah.
Okay. This one here is a 20 by 16 room. Again, notice all of these rooms are not rectangular. They're somewhat squarish in their design. What he wanted was a double track main line, a large sorting yard, multiple city scenes, a rural farm scene, continuous running, mainline elevation changes, and a big mountain scene. Okay, now that may sound like a lot for 20 by 16 space. This is what originally we had talked about doing, which of course I stopped it real quick, even though it is a peninsula and everything. I just didn't like the way it was done. One of his requests that was funny when we first started this is he was afraid to build curved benchwork. He didn't want to build curved benchwork, which is really easy to build in my mind. So he was doing everything square, and I told him, I says, that just eats up a lot of needless space, and I says it's not good. But this was kind of something he had come up with that he wanted to do. Biggest problem with this plan was where the two A's are. That was 30 inches wide across there. That was a huge peninsula running across there, and I told him I didn't think that needed to be that wide. Again, the square corners eat up a lot of space. So what did we do for him? Again, I only put a single track in there, but you could easily make it a double track main line. I went from this, exactly the same space, to designing him this here. Now, he has his double track main line. We have long viewing blocks where you see the red line running up through that peninsula there. When somebody would walk into that room, they're only going to see maybe half of this layout, because that view block in that mountain where A is going to be, that's tall enough they can't see over it there. Okay, we've got 3 city scenes on this layout. One in the center of the peninsula, then one at E and one at F there. The farm scene, that's where I've got the B at. It was important for him to have a farm scene on the layout, so I put the farm scene over where you see the B. Up at the top where it's a G, there's the sorting yard. Big yard runs the length of that 20-foot span there. At one end of it, we put in the turntable and roundhouse. And at the other end, I put in a car repair shop for him. And this layout is can operate completely prototypical. You can also see up in the 2 corners at the top, I put in those bridges coming over the top of the track. Again, those are just kind of view blocks to break up the views of it and that. The aisle spaces here are narrow. They are very narrow. But he was willing to sacrifice narrow aisle space to get this kind of mainline run. Why? Because he wanted to be able to run trains and watch them run. But then I talked to him about doing Walkalong, and after he finally realized what Walkalong meant, now he says he's not too worried about just doing continuous running. It was interesting, he was fighting me pretty hard about that view block running up through the center. He says, well, when people come in the room, they can only see part of the layout. And it was hard to explain to him that, yeah, that's what we want. We don't want them to see the whole layout. We only want them to see small portions of it at a time there. So that's when you look at that, and if I go back here to that's a fairly dramatic difference. And again, because we went with narrow aisles, and he's going to run this pretty much himself. He said it would just be him and maybe one other person is all that would run this layout. I'm okay with narrow aisles if that's the case. I don't have any problem with it. Okay. Any questions about this one at all?
I can't see how narrow are these aisles.
They run 24 inches is the narrowest. It's anywhere from 24 to 30.
That's not bad.
Well, it's not good, but it's not bad.
Right.
It's
a guy my size can get through there, so that's the important part.
Well, and what you have to realize when you really look at this, he has a lot of mainline run. Oh, something else I'd like to show you guys, I think is a neat design thing to do. If you look on the left and right walls of this, you'll see I've got 2 industries, and I put the industries on the right side is the big grain elevator. On the left side, I've got a propane company there, and something else I put in. I can't remember what it was. But if you notice how I designed the main line to curve and come out and run around those industries, most people would think when they were designing, they put the main line behind it and put the industry in front of it there. Because these industries don't require a lot of sorting and switching, that wasn't necessary to do that. And I just think it adds way more interest to have the main line curve, not just be a straight line everywhere there. So that's why you see all these angles and the fact the main line is not running. If you really take a look at that, there's not a whole lot of square footage on that, or linear footage on this layout where the track actually does run perfectly straight. I think it adds a little bit of interest to it.
Bill, on these layouts, are they all HO or?
Yes, everything I'm showing you is HO scale here.
Okay.
Everything is HO. Probably, just so everybody knows, probably 80 to 85% of all the layouts I design are HO scale. I do some N scale, and I've done 2 or 3 narrow gauge HON 30s, HON 3 layouts. I've done a couple
Yeah, I
of
know
those.
one that you done.
Yeah, no one that I did. Okay, now we're gonna go to 22 by 19. That's a pretty good size space there. It's 400 and almost 430 square foot. This is the one. And this will take some study. We'll go through it. This was the client's request. Had to be 4 levels, no helix, multiple hidden staging yards, 2 opposing peninsulas, walk around track length. That was the easy part. Single track main line. Thank God. Okay. Large classification yard, longest possible mainline run, mountainous scenery. Those were his basic requests. Okay, we're going to start at the bottom. We're going to start down at lower staging. This is 28 inches off the floor here. And what you see are the 2 peninsulas that are designed into the layout. And both of these are automatic restaged hidden staging. The trains automatically restage them. He doesn't have to reach under there and do anything with trains coming in. They'll automatically restage themselves. Now, for this to make sense for you, let me just give you an idea how this works. Take the west staging, which is the B, where you see the B dot. The track comes out, goes down, runs along the wall there, along the bottom of the picture, across the lift out, comes up the wall on the left side, and then you see it turn out over the other staging yard. And where C is at is where it actually doesn't come out at C, it comes out over the top of the other staging. But this is where this staging yard connects with the main layout, is right there. The E staging, or the A staging, it comes down, it comes across the lift out, and then instantly connects with the layout there on the next level, on the upper level there. But I'll show you, when I show you the next picture here, you'll see kind of the unique thing we did with this that I think is going to be really sharp when he gets it built. Okay, again, this is lower staging. This is the staging area at the bottom. Okay, here's the main level. Go down to G again. Because I want to make this somewhat clear to everybody what's going on here. Go down the bottom at G. Where you see the black track, where it says B from lower staging, that's the track coming out of that lower staging down there, wrapping around through that peninsula. The orange track that you see running over the top of that black one, that's the track that runs up to the second level of this, or the third level, I should say, the second scenic level of the layout. That's going up to the upper level of the layout. Now, where I've got the A over there, there's where you can see I've got the tunnel where that staging that's below the bottom peninsula, where it connects to the layout up there, where I've got that yellow piece of track drawn into there. Over in the lower left-hand corner, because of the locale that we're designing this track plan for, that's a huge grain elevator and shipping area where they would load grain into boats and ship them out overseas. So that's a big industry that sits right there on the corner. But you do see the 2 peninsulas. You see they both got dividers between them. When we go to the, it has only one town. If you notice that, there's only one town on the layout there. Let's go to up to the top where we've got the yard. If you think about it, you went back and thought about the one I just showed you before this, that yard looks very similar to the layout that you've seen just before this. Why is that? Because this is the best usage of the space when you're going to do a big layout that you're going to use for switching.
Bill, I think we're still looking at the main level.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we're still looking
okay.
at the level. Yeah, we're fine. But I want you to see where the yard is, and we're looking at the yard just above the word main level. if you look at the upper right-hand corner, you'll see where that track turns to an orange track. So that track, that orange track, comes around, wraps around the peninsula, and then eventually comes back around and ends up at the same height as the upper level. Point I'm making with this is, as you walk into this room and you turn to your right and you look down that aisleway, that is a huge canyon. That's a big canyon where the tracks are running over the top of each other. That's why I put those rivers in there like that they were at the bottom of the canyon there. But people stand there and they're just looking into a big canyon scene with these tracks going over the top and crossing over each other. But you just have to visualize that that orange track is climbing all the way from that yard up at the top until it reaches the lift out down there at the bottom. That's doing a steady climb up the hill there. The ruling grade is 2.2% on this here. So this particular level starts out at 28 inches down there where you see that B for the lower staging, and ends up at the G at 56 inches. That's the variance in the height. And this all had to be built doing cookie cutter. You couldn't build this on a flat table. It just wouldn't work. Okay, let's go to the next one. This is the upper level now. That's where you see G, it's going to connect in there to the top. Okay, where I got A, it says to the main level. Again, comes across. There's multiple lift outs as he comes through the door here. Now, something you're not aware of because you don't see them superimposed over each other, but this level is about 6 to 8 inches narrower than the level you just seen. So that when people are running trains up here, all of this Girder benchwork is 6 to 8 inches narrower in spots. And that. But this runs around. This is a huge layout. This is a big boy layout here. Smaller yard up on this second level. What we did with this is we created on the different levels, we created different industries. And that I've got a coal mine sitting on that bottom peninsula. On the upper peninsula, I've got a sawmill sitting up there for him. Interesting thing is this is a big enough layout. You could ship products from industry to industry if you wanted to on the layout. I'm not a big fan of that, as everybody knows. I just don't like people that move products from one industry on their layout to the other, because most layouts aren't big enough to do that. But this one here, what I did is, for instance, the coal mining operation, we're going to have that designed so almost all of they're going to be unit coal trains to run, but they're all going to run off layout. They're not going to be stopping anywhere on the layout to deliver product. The coal mine or the sawmill up there, yeah, we'll do some sawmill operations, or he will, where he'll be moving products from the sawmill to maybe some places on the layout. But again, the point of this level is that yard up at the top is narrower because the upper level benchwork isn't as wide. The idea for operations is with that upper level yard up there where it says C, all the trains come into that yard, they switch out, they pick up cars, they drop off cars, and then there's locals that run off of this level out to all of these industries that are here on this second level. Now, an interesting thing here, and this I did all by accident, but I think it's kind of worth noting. Look at E. That's only about, I think that's about 8 inches wide there, maybe 10 inches wide. I put a whole town in there, and the tracks run behind the town. And I wanted to put a big enough town up there to kind of justify this whole area that he's doing. So there's a case of I build a whole town in about maybe 5 or 6 inches of space. It can be done. It's not a problem. Now, you go down to D, where we've got the coal mine, and then you'll see the track come around, and it says where I've got B on there. That's going to the fourth level of this layout, which is upper staging, which looks like this. And that sits at 67.5 inches off the ground. So we've gone from 28 to 67.5 inches there. And this has 3 staging yards on this layout. All 3 of them are automatically restaging. They don't have to touch anything. They're all built as reverse loops. But This is a layout, guys. I think when I figured this all out for him, I think we came up with about $5,000 worth of track to build this layout. So gives you an idea of what the cost is. Okay, last thing. This is it. This is my final thoughts. Avoid designing donut hole layouts. I just don't want people to do that because everyone grows tired of it. They just realize sometimes early on, sometimes not so early on. This is not the way to go. Please avoid building wide benchwork. You'll not be happy with it. Again, I try to stay in the 18 to 24-inch maximum range whenever I design. And the bottom one is the big one. Never be afraid to start over. I can't emphasize that enough. And the reason I say that is I've built 5 layouts. Every layout I've built has been better than the one I had before. The one I'm building now is better than the one I had before, and the one I had before was about 40% bigger than the one I'm building now. But it wasn't as good as the one I'm building now. So just never be afraid, guys, to start over, please. Johnny, any questions?
Yeah, we've got several here. Another one from Bruce. Let's see. I'll get a little echo off of you.
You want me to reset?
No, just mute mic for right now.
Okay.
Just remember you got to unmute when you go to answer. Well, we got this is Bruce. Have you done a track plan including the famous Bailey yard? I am thinking of submitting to you a request for a track plan of the 3 level with Bailey yard on level 2. It might be built in half of a 5-car garage.
Okay, I'm assuming he's talking about Bailey Yard in North Platte. I was born and raised in Nebraska, so I'm somewhat familiar with it. No, I can honestly say I've never built the Bailey Yard, and if you want to talk about selective compression, there's selective compression because you don't need a 5-car garage. You're going to need about a 20-car garage to do it. I don't know if he's ever been to Bailey Yard, but it's my understanding that on either end of Bailey Yard for miles, it's 4-track main lines coming into Bailey Yard, 3 and 4 tracks for miles to the west and to the east. That is such a huge facility that you'd have to do so much selective compression that I don't know that you could give it its due, if you could even make a representative replica of it. I don't know.
Yeah. I got another one here from Carl. I have noticed that all your rooms only have the entrance to the room to deal with. Most spaces, unless they were actually designed for a mall railroad, have at least one closet and perhaps several windows. How do you deal with the closet and the windows?
Good question. The closet, interesting enough, I don't have that many of them that have closets, and if I do, you would be surprised at the number of people that say I don't need to use the closet. The closet won't be used, and that so the closet becomes a non-issue. Windows also tend to become a non-issue because if we have backdrops, the backdrops just run in front of the windows unless you want the windows to be able to see out. Now, if you're building a layout in a basement and you need to have an egress out of there, then you have to do something a little different if you've got windows that you need to get out of in case of a fire or something like that. But that's really not that big of a problem to do. One of the things I suggest that people do is what I showed you way back early in those photos, putting those 2x2s around the outside walls. That gets everything out. It makes the room 3 inches narrower because you're using those 2x2s, but it gets everything off the walls, so you're not really dealing with anything on the walls. Yes, when I do basements, I have to know exactly where the sewer pipes are at. I have to know exactly where the electrical panels are at. I have to know where the support posts are at. Basements are a whole different ballgame than that. But on all of these that you've seen, that I've showed you here as examples, no, you haven't seen much of that, but I could show you some where the windows are in there without any question.
And
Go ahead.
I wanted to add that Big Bill just took his closet door off, and in an HO scale, he was able to design a loop that went inside the closet and came back out and afforded him room for another industry.
That's right. Exactly.
All right, here's one from Ocus. Ever since I have learned about how the view block works, I am a huge fan of the illusion it gives and the options it opens up to the modeler.
That's right. Yeah, and
His comment.
Interesting thing, let me comment about that for just a second. When I say view blocks, I'm not talking about something that goes to the ceiling. All I'm talking about is a view block that is the top of it is 72 inches off the floor, not off the benchwork, off the floor. There, maybe 75 inches in that, because all you want it is to be tall enough so that the average person that's 6 foot tall can't see over it, can't see over the top of it. That's all you need to do. There. And the other thing that's interesting about that is when you're operating, if you're doing prototypical operations, you can have two operators that are literally 3 foot apart, but if they're on each side of the view block, they can't see each other. They might as well be miles apart when they're only 3 foot apart in reality.
And I don't want to monopolize here, but I do want to mention that they work great, because I was over at a good friend of mine's house, Philip Wyman, and he has a 12 by 8 or 12 by 10 L, because he has very little room in his basement, and it just looks small. But as soon as he put the view block down that 12-foot length, because that's a 12-foot side to side he could walk on either side of, that just made it look so much larger. I thought it was a great idea.
Any more questions, John?
Yeah, we got one here from Big Bill. When designing a layout, do you place where the control panels would be located along the benchwork?
I don't do that. I leave that up to the people that are building the layouts. When people ask me what do I recommend, again, I realize it's not the cheap route to go, but I just don't think this hobby should be done on the cheap all the time. I think that's a really bad mistake to do. My layout that's downstairs in this house is using the NCE system, but it's wireless. And I have 4 or 5 wireless cabs for the layout. So basically, on my layout, I don't have to worry about where the cabs are going to be at and everything. And I highly recommend it to people to do that. As far as where they should go, I can advise them. I can give them ideas of where to put it. But no, I don't do that. I don't tell them exactly where to go.
Yeah. Bruce has asked, anyone know if MyCore is carried by Home Depot or Lowe's? My suggestion is to Google MyCore. It usually gives you places where you can buy it.
Yeah, out here in Colorado, and I don't know this to be true anyplace else in the country, but out here, if you walk into Lowe's, you walk into Home Depot, they have no idea what you're talking about when you say MyCore. I buy it from a company that deals primarily with contractors, and that's where you'll find it. You'll find it through contractors. You won't find it at a Home Depot, and that they just have never heard of it. Where I go is a company that specializes in drywall for contractors. When you walk into their office, it's not a big office, but when you walk back into their shop, they have drywall stacked 60 feet in the air. And
Yeah.
so that's where you got to go to. You got to go to a specialty place. Is where you have to go.
Yeah. Curtis Hunt had a comment here just for Sparky. Sparky, I have bad hips and knees, and I have to use the layout to get up. So yes, it will hold you. I'm about 220, and it is strong. Talking about the L girder.
Yeah, until you build it, guys, you don't know. You don't know what.
Yeah, yeah. But no, that's about it there. Unless anybody else got any questions or comments.
I'll kick off this share. We'll get rid of it. Then we'll come back to my ugly face.
Well, one thing I want to comment on, if I knew how to build L girder, if I had a little more of this kind of information when I was wanting to redo mine, I probably would have tore everything out because I'd have been a little bit more understanding of how it was to be done. You know what I mean? But when you just don't know, I think that's where you're going to run into the guys that are just adamant they don't want to tear down what they have because they're just afraid of the unknown.
Yeah, there's a lot of this hobby that's different, and there's different ways to do things. That's all I'm trying to do with this, guys. I'm getting an echo back on myself here. Should I
No, that was Dwight. I just muted him.
Oh, okay. Again, there's so much of this hobby that that can be done multiple ways, and the whole reason I got started in this was watching those YouTube videos and watching what some of the guys were doing and going, whoa, wait a minute, there's a better way to do this.
I just want to thank you and Johnny for an excellent program tonight. By the questions asked, this was a very successful program. Thanks for both of your time.
Well, it was supposed to last an hour. You see what's happened on time. I'm sorry about that, guys, if I talk too much.
Yeah, great show, Bill. There's some great information there, but unfortunately not a great deal of it is useful for me because my layout has to be modular.
Yeah.
I'm not only limited in width and length, but I'm also limited in height because mine has to be able to be stacked away.
Right.
Well, it's my circumstance.
Yeah, when you're talking about modular layouts, and it has to be, and I assume when you say modular, you want it so you can take it apart eventually and move it. Is that what you're saying?
If I'm allowed to screen here, I'll give you a rough idea. I think you're
fixing to say, Andrew, you need to show him your setup here. It's rather neat.
if I can find the right page.
Yeah, that's another one of Andrew's fallbacks. He can't find the right page. he's always on the wrong page.
Andrew, you've seen my total capability tonight with running this thing. I can screen share, and that's it.
Yeah, here we are. Come on.
Well, while he's doing that, I'm just going to say, David, Curtis, James, Bill, appreciate it. They all were saying thank you. Great show as usual.
Perfect. Thank you.
We're glad that we can put this information out for you. This is what the shows are about. It's for the viewers. All right, let me present Andrew here real quick.
You see that, Miles? Okay.
Okay, you bet. Absolutely.
That's the concept of my layout. The very top one, which is that sort of dark area, that's going to be my central module, which is basically a folded dog bone. Okay. But the modules can go out either end, so they've got somewhere to go. And these are my two different modules, which are stored away underneath when not being used.
That's a great idea.
So what I end up with is something like, come on. There's my central module.
Okay.
Then I have two modules either end. I've got to redesign this one. So I've got to get large sort of town, sort of industrial area sort of there. Then if I want to go off to another module there, and then the other module will go out the side there. Now, as you can see from the previous page, I'm limited to height. I can't put a view, like a, what do you call it, skyboard or whatever down the middle, because it just doesn't give me room.
Yeah, you can't do it. That's right.
So I've tried to put hills and things like that to sort of break it up a bit as much as I can.
I think that's a great idea. It is. One of the things I do, Andrew, and I sometimes people maybe think I'm crazy. If people have sizes like this, like you've got, and they want me to design a layout for them, I just bluntly tell them they're really wasting their money spending money with me, because there's so many track plans out there that you can modify off of these sizes in here. And I just tell people I can't perform miracles. I can't do something different than what somebody else has done. And that.
Yeah.
And
I think you've seen this once before, quite a while ago on a show.
I think so.
And you had to put that skyboard down, which was a good idea and would have worked beautifully, but height-wise it just wouldn't have worked because I just don't have the limit. I'm limited.
Well, you've got the problem too. As soon as you've got those storage underneath, because that's the way our club layout, we store it in modules similar to that. As soon as you do that, you're limited to how high you can do mountains and scenery in that.
Yeah. The other thing is it's on casters, so I can pull. They're 3 foot wide by 8 foot modules, by the way.
Okay.
It's on casters, so I can pull it away from the wall, so I can get down both sides.
Right. We do on our club layout. It's really, I shouldn't say club layout. It's a display layout. We take to train shows to advertise the club, but we take all the buildings off. The buildings come off and they go into tubs, and then we slide like you just did there. We slide the one on top of the other or below, and that. Yeah.
That's what I've done. Each of those buildings will be on a separate little, like you might call a little diorama affair, which will just drop into place.
Exactly. But the thing about this, Andrew, and I think people should understand this, regardless of which of these track plans he's got here. There's a heck of a lot of operation that's going on there. There's a lot of things that you can do.
Yeah. What I did with that when I was designing it, what was the name of the program? XCAD track, where you can actually operate trains, simulate them.
Mm-hmm.
See if my track plan would actually work. We were actually usable.
With this particular, right.
So it was usable. Then I did it in SCARM to be able to do the scenery.
Right.
What I was going to look at.
I know it looks good. It looks good. That's using the space judiciously, as they say.
Yeah. So if the way it is, I can either just do some rail fanning by running some trains around here,
right,
or do some serious switching down below. The other reason I got the centre module is a fold dogbone. The trains can enter, say, from the right, and then they can just run around the fold dogbone a few times till a certain period of time elapsed before the next operator grabs it and takes it off into his module to do switching or whatever.
Right.
So you've got 2 destinations, but you've got the time lapse up here. So.
Yeah. Well, operations is what I'm all about, because well, like Saturday when I operate on this huge layout, there'll probably be 18 of us running trains on this 3,000 square foot layout. And I mean, it's if you guys want to take a look at the layout, just Google BNFS Fall River Division or John Parker, and you'll see the layout. If it's not one of the top 10 layouts in the United States, I don't know what is. It's incredible. You know, Andrew, you know Craig, who lives in Australia. There, you know who he is, correct?
Yeah.
Sorry, say that again.
Yeah, Fishplate Films. When he was in Denver, I took him to John Parker's layout, because it's the same era, it's the same thing that he's running as BSFN, modern era. And I took Craig over there, showed him John's layout, and he said that was the best part of the day, was seeing that.
Yeah, I think that was the best part of his trip.
What do you talk? Well, you got to see the museum in Greeley, and then I took him over to John Parker's Fall River, and
yeah,
that way
I
that
took
made
him to Bailey Yard.
Oh, the Bailey. Yeah. Hey, Bob, let's do the Bailey Yard in scale. How's that?
Well, I've been trying, but it ain't working.
It worked. Yeah. Unless you've been out there, you don't understand how big that is.
Yeah, that'd take my whole basement.
Right. That's right.
Well, I guess we're pretty well done for tonight. That was a very good presentation there, Bill.
Well, thanks for putting up with me, guys, and listening to it. I appreciate it.
Oh, that's no problem. You got always have a lot to say that we need to listen to. Yeah.
Do we get a discount when you teach us new things and we need you to redesign our layouts?
No, what I want you to do is try them, and then when you screw them up, I'll come in and help you fix it.
Okay.
and I will. I may not do it tonight, Jimmy, but I will sometime tomorrow see what turned out to use up in that corner.
Okay, thanks.
You bet.
Yeah, Bill, I think you'll make a fortune out of Jim.
Yeah.
Say that. Well.
All righty.
Okay.
I guess we'll go ahead and shut this one down. Geno's going to be on the phone tomorrow to me. What in the heck are you doing to me running a 2-hour show instead of an hour and a half? Yeah.
Cry me a river.
That's what you get for having a busted water pipe. I'm all used to 2-hour shows, not short ones.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I want to say thank you to everybody for joining. Taki, Jim, DeBob's Man Cave, Andy and Andrew, Dave over here. I want to thank Dave and Sparky and Okus and Big Bill and Southern. Haven't seen or heard from you in a while. But I want to thank everybody for coming in. We had good viewership tonight. I want to say keep checking in on the YouTubeModelBuilders.com website for all the latest news and info on the Tuesday night presentations, the EMAG, and the live show schedules. The live show is once every month, and that's coming up the 16th of this month. The EMAG is bi-monthly, so you want to make sure you sign up on the website for notification when the EMAG comes out. JD and his crew do a fantastic job on that. And even Bill here does an article in there on track planning. Let's see. The Tuesday presentations now are every other week. So you want to check the schedule, make sure who's hosting and what the topic's going to be. And then you have the Thursday general hangouts, which is every week as well. One of these days, I want to get somebody to host my show, since I'm hosting everybody else's, or doing the tech work anyway. But you can go to the website and sign up for the EMAG, like I said earlier. You'll be notified when it comes out. It is a PDF, so that way you can read it on a wide variety of different media. So it doesn't matter if you're at work, hiding from the boss, or out cutting grass or whatever. You can still kind of read it as you go along. I want to say thank you for participating in tonight's Hangout. And always, all our shows, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, excuse me, we're all 9 o'clock Central Time, so be sure to check your time zones. Make sure that you catch the show when it is on. If you do miss the show or can't watch it, it is recorded, and we do put it up on our YouTube channel, which is YouTube Mile Railroaders on YouTube. And you can go there, be able to watch the show or any other show that's in the archives. So if you missed previous shows, you go back, get caught up. And I want to say thank you to everybody for joining in on the Q&A. We've had some good questions, good comments. And with that said, this one's in the can. Y'all have a good week, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.